Aloha. With this video, I had to I had to keep going with the Joe Rogan. Actually, I wasn't even really giving a shit about what this video was gonna be about. I was actually just watching this video to keep up with like what Rogan's response will be after he's being taken down by like Alex Jones and Owen Benjamin. That's like a big deal in that little world of wherever they think shit matters. That whole world of this is what we should be paying attention to. So, like I've been saying in previous videos where I did that series about Joe Rogan is because once we start focusing on pieces on the board, that will affect the entire wave. So Joe Rogan was a definite piece on the board. He represents a particular layer of consciousness. It's even further than that. People like look up to this dude like he's some kind of intellect, like he's a professor. He's like the regular Joe All-American smart dude, but he's not really smart. He's like the jock smart dude. He basically is the embodiment of the kind of like the American dream, or the American the colonial American psyche, which is just this hot dog, just like all American, fighting. What is this? Just like martial arts. It's just the jock mentality. And I was thinking about this earlier too. The the very nature of the American way is counterproductive to like healing on a massive scale. So like Texas. So like people who live in Texas, like the pride of Texas. Like okay, so when you go and when you think about flags, like think about how flags affect the psyche or the consciousness of the people overall. Now look at like cultures that have been created on blood and bones. So the Texan way, like Tex-Mex, like this is like I said in the last video, celebrities are put out there to humanize a completely self-destructive and ridiculous like parasitic system. The celebrities, this is why they're paid so much. They're paid so much to not because they're talented or anything. They're paid so much to keep their mouth shut because if they say anything about what they're really about or what they're really a part of, then they become part of. Oh, I don't even know if this kept recording. Hopefully it did. They become seen for what. Okay, it is. They become seen for what the system, they become the manifestation of the system if they say anything about the system. So the money is basically like it's like a gag order. So you're a part of this crew, you can go to these parties, you can go to these shows, you can have all this this material stuff in this material world based upon illusions and lies. So the reason why they get paid millions of dollars is because they can't say anything about the blood and the bones of the indigenous people that this entire establishment or this empire is built upon. We need to start speaking about this in reference to what it really is. People like Joe Rogan, Owen Benjamin, Alex Jones, even people that say that they're not trying to address the establishment in any kind of way, like Jesse Spots when I first started addressing him personally. He said specifically, I'm not trying to address the Western, so-called civilization, and that's where the whole wall is coming up in the world of like actual change and people calling themselves truthers. People are only truthers to a certain degree. So things are only going to change to a certain degree based upon the reality that people keep rehashing. So people keep rehashing a reality that's not based upon. See, people think I'm rehashing like slavery and genocide and colonialism, all that other, just to be an asshole or something like that. No, I'm bringing this shit to the surface so people, individuals, and on a massive scale can heal this shit. Like, so we can actually move forward. Like, people in this new age mentality, or if they're in this ignorant state of mind, they just say we just need to move forward, and that's just what's been happening over and over and over again, because the system plans, the establishment needs that, because once you move forward without healing first, and you fail when you haven't healed, then they can provide the ace bandages and all that other stuff. They could be your savior when you fail. So that's what the system is doing over and over and over again. And now that we're realizing the complexities of the systems, the way that the system places itself out there in our faces to appear like it's on our team or it's for us, need to be more complex. So enter in Alex Jones, Owen Benjamin, TYT, Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan, even these smaller YouTube channels like Jesse Spott's Quantum of Conscious, even Jaronism and all that other stuff. It's a linear consciousness. You can see how it's very linear. There's nothing non-linear to it. The closest that people get to a non-linear discussion about something like flat earth is to get into a space of talking about, and by the way, evolution is included in this, and that's also bullshit. If you ask me, the idea of monkey evolution is actually equal to the lie of the fucking the heliocentrism. It's equal, because it's your story. It's how you're the one interpreting the so-called flat earth, the so-called heliocentric earth. And if you are not what you have been told you have been, if you're not a fucking monkey that evolved into a dude that has a smartphone now, then that's way more fucking complex and way more interesting than the shape of this place, that the shape of the dirt and the water that we're walking on. Get the fuck out of here. So that's the level of that's like the adolescent sort of high school jock, cheerleader, nerd, saved by the bell sort of mentality that the system wants to keep people at. So this is why they enter in these celebrities that are, adolescent minded. You listen to Joe Rogan stand up, you're listening to a 17-year-old child. Listen to Joe Rogan stand up on Netflix and tell me you're not listening to a slightly intelligent, like more intelligent, or like 17, 18, 19-year-old child, basically. It's fucking ridiculous. But you can see how he changes from his podcast persona to his stand-up persona, because they have to play these roles. They have to cater to their particular audience that they've been hired to dumb down. People like Joe Rogan, Owen Benjamin, and all these other individuals that are out there, whether they know it or not, are out there. They've been paid millions of dollars. They've been put in these in front of people's faces. They've been put in these circles, ultimately to dumb down society. Ultimately to dumb down, to keep a particular level of consciousness from going any further than the level of consciousness that maintains this dumbed down slave master system. So anybody who talks about expanding the level of consciousness or addressing this system as a whole, the pillars of this system, they're going to be seen as crazy. So when or like outlandish, or radical or some shit like that. Like, this is what happened to the Black Panthers. So when I started addressing these so-called truthers, like a year or 2 years ago, Jesse Spots was one of them. He's very vocal, talked about the flat earth and the Mandela effect. We were in the same category as far as YouTubers. He had way more subscribers than me back when I had like under like 100 or 200 at that time. And I was like, you know what? These are just regular dudes. They portray themselves to be like regular ass people. So I'm gonna start seeing what these regular ass people are about. And then when I addressed regular ass Jesse about, that, he flat out came, and I respect him for actually saying that, because most of these people just avoid the whole topic. They won't say anything. But at least how far people are willing to go and not willing to go. So when I ask somebody directly, like, are you really talking about, like, really addressing the Western so-called civilization, or what are you talking about? So they're willing to talk about the Big Bang, relativity, gravity, evolution theory, heliocentrism, the empire, the university system, but for some reason can't really equate that to the very nature of the authority of this so-called empire, this regime, because this is what it is. So people like like I said, Joe Rogan, Owen Benjamin, TYT, all these other dudes, whoever else, Alex Jones, Stephen Colbert, Bill Maher, they are all hired. They are all in your face, like the mainstream media, to maintain the level of consciousness of the slave-minded regime. So anything that maintains the position of the regime, the colonial regime. This is what you have to really start, because this is what they do to so-called terrorists. And why don't we say that? Why is it so taboo to call the so-called colonists? This is why they called themselves fucking settlers and colonists, because they didn't want you to call them what they really were, was fucking terrorists. Today, that's what they're trying to do with the immigrants, label them as terrorists. So this is a good segue into this video right now, which is why I stopped this video, because about 30 seconds into this video, and I had a feeling something was going to go down with Joe Rogan after all these people were going at him now. And this made perfect sense. Look, I played this video because I wanted to see what he was going to say about this. Well, I know it's going to be some old childish, like some... Look at his face. This is his actual, like, channel, too. Like, look at his face. Like... That kind of face. You know how people get, like, really scared about, like, cheap B-list movies, or really, like, how people are really sensitive or something, like, it's kind of, or children who are like really believe themselves into, like, Disney movies. This is what Joe Rogan represents for adults. He's like the one that makes you believe in, like, a grown up Disney belief systems. This is what his face represents right there. So let me play this. Joe Rogan is fully on board with the New World Order. Like, he's not gonna come back. He doesn't look like, if he does, like, come back to the side of the truthers, it's gonna be just for some other kind of bullshit, like I've been explaining in this video and the previous videos before. It's gonna be to maintain, like, to create some kind of, like, Avengers crew. But they gotta make it deep. They gotta make it real, believable. So they'll let him go on and on and on. This is giving it the benefit of the doubt that it's gonna go that far. Because he'd have to play dumb for a long ass time to be doing that, because he's being called out directly now by some pretty, heavy dudes right now. People he's had on his own channel. So this is why I said it's kind of important to pay attention to this video right now, and why I stopped it and wanted to see where it was going after that, is because he literally says in here, in talking about Trump and immigration and the wall and a state of emergency and all this other bullshit, he says in here that if the whole world was like America, that is that new world, like, terrorist, like, sort of mentality. And that's why I said, like, the very nature, we don't really pay any mind to it, but the very nature of, like, the Texan way, like, that whole idea, like, remember the Alamo, cowboy hats and all that other shit, like, there's that, the very nature of that, the pride that people have in that, the nature of that, to have a pride in that is to keep the establishment afloat, like, from healing itself, from dealing with it. Like, how are you going to be proud? It's kind of like counterproductive, or an oxymoron, or whatever you want to call it. It's damn near impossible to, like, have a pride in, like the Texan way, like Alex Jones has pride in the 1776 and the Constitution and all that other shit. It's like, and this is loosely speaking, it's like spiritually impossible. And like I said, I use those two words very loosely, obviously. But you see what I mean. It's spiritually impossible to have the Texas sort of cultural mindset and also be in a kind of like a sacred space, or a really, on a macro scale, on a overall scale, in a space of recognizing and healing the wounds of the land and of the people of this land. It's damn near impossible. And like I said, spiritually impossible. But so, excuse me, as they maintain the American way, the American dream, this idea of them having any kind of power of authority to build a fucking wall on land that they stole, that they genocided people to, own and all that other shit. This is all a fucking Disney game. And these individuals are there to not only make you believe it, but to push, to kind of thrust the or usher the agenda into the next gears. But people are picking up on the bullshit right now, and some of their heavy hitters are being called out for their bullshit. Joe Rogan's one of them. And like I said, this is all a game. It don't even like they're being called out. It don't even fucking matter. Like I said, I'm just saying this just to emphasize the bullshit within this system, and show you like how the what's the word for that? The general direction, including like people like Joe Rogan, and when he says some shit like this. So
now let me ask you this, because we're in the biggest crisis in terms of immigration, in terms of national discussion, the biggest discussion
crisis
they're not going to ever remember right now.
So he's saying he's pumping it up. He's like a UFC announcer. Here we are in the biggest event that I've ever known of, and I'm a smart dude. I have a fucking podcast. Here we are in the biggest event. He's basically the announcer for the mainstream agenda. He's like the UFC announcer for the mainstream agenda.
Out with this wall shit where the government is completely shut down, and no one's budget on either side.
Now he tells you what to do with it.
They're not getting paid, and it's all because Trump wants $5 billion for this wall.
Build it. Now what?
I'm not. Let's just. In an ideal world, it would be ideal if the way the world worked was the way America works.
Boom. In an ideal world. He basically said everything would be fucking rainbows and gumdrops. If the whole world was run like America, how in the fuck can people ignore how that is not, how that is the same mentality, the same consciousness of the colonial psyche that I've been addressing on this channel since I started putting shit on here. But people conveniently miss this part of the discussion, and they talk about the wall. Them talking about the wall is like flat earthers talking about flat versus globe. That's it. You don't have the fucking authority to build a wall. They didn't ever have the authority to build a heliocentric consciousness because it was a fucking illusion. The same way their authority for this wall shit is an illusion. Immigrant, these colonial fucking, like, oh god, worse than immigrants, fucking terrorists are now telling the people of this land, their land, that they should they need to build a wall. Get the fuck out of here. See, that's the thing now. This is what I'm saying. This is some bubblegum truth, some old fucking training wheel truth. People ain't gonna real talk about that. They're not gonna go into that. And like I said, when people ask me about a lot of stuff, I'm not talking about anything less than that. Nothing less than that. If we ain't starting on that level, then we ain't got nothing to talk about. We have to, like, from what I'm talking about, we gotta come from the perspective of expanding outside of this idea of what they tell us we are. So if you, like I said, the next place to go after you realize that you're not a fucking monkey that was shot out of the Big Bang is to realize that, that, well, now your idea of humanity is in question. Well, what the fuck is a human? What the hell is this experience? Who's asking that question? What is, life after death? What is all this? So what is our relationship to our parents, our brothers, our sisters, our families, our friends, our, like, each other? Like, what is all this stuff? People aren't asking these questions, like, largely. I'm generalizing, obviously, but when I came across Flat Earth, those were the main questions that were more amplified, because I actually started asking and answering those questions before I even came into Flat Earth. But Flat Earth just made it more obvious now. And it made people like Joe Rogan more obvious too, because now you have kind of an anchor point to plant yourself and realize who's full of shit and who's at least open to whatever. And then over time, you'll see who's not only full of shit, but is like consciously full of shit, possibly having some kind of malevolent intention behind their full of shitness. Joe Rogan has been on that shit list for a long time now, and these are just some of these examples. Listen to that wording. That's what I said. He has a huge following. This already has, 500,000 views, and this is just one little clip of this video. In what a couple of days or whatever, like a day, or today. So, these are wave influencers. Owen Benjamin is a wave influencer. The truther community is a wave influencer. So the system plays the macro. It's just the same way it plays the subconscious. So it doesn't have to play each individual, but they got to make you think like each individual is getting played. The same way people who are caught up in that mindset say, well, is everybody in NASA lying? Is everybody in the university system lying? That's a childish kind of response. Not kinda, it's definitely a childish response. But that's what the system wants you to be at. It's the same way that the system wants you to physically fight. So they put these meat muscle heads out in front of you like Joe Rogan to subconsciously promote that sort of American way. Just the same way Alex Jones promotes that literal Texas 1776 forefathers colonial mentality. And still these truthers don't say anything about that obvious fucking mistruth and bullshit truth. How the fuck could you make all these videos about like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and TYT and not address the very nature, the very psychosis, the fucking psychosis of playing like the American dream is something amazing. The American dream is no different than saying make America great again. So Alex Jones talking about, the revolution will commence from a perspective of 1776. He is like expressing, like, for people who believe this shit. So that's some psychotic bullshit. And these so-called intelligent, like, truthers or whatever, they don't really talk about the complexities of that. Like, how the fuck could you be knowledgeable of all of these conspiracy theories of all this other stuff, but be like so dumb you don't like, maybe it's something in like inside the individuals that they can't empathize, or at least sympathize with, like, what's going on here on this land. So, like, Mexico, like California, New Mexico, that's why they call it fucking New Mexico, Texas, all this. This is fucking Mexico and Native America. Conveniently, all these people like Joe Rogan and these truthers act like that shit doesn't exist. They just the same way people act like they don't, like aliens built the fucking pyramids and aliens did Machu Picchu. Like the followers of that world are doing the same thing, and they're calling themselves a truther community now. How fucking sick is this shit? And like I'm saying, this is the main thing that's more important to focus on, is the realization that this is a disease. I'm going to start going into the Wetiko virus a little bit more to explain how this disease, the Wetiko virus, exists inside of the truther community, like more obviously than anything else. I've done some videos on the Wetiko on this channel. They're on the top picks playlist if you want to check those out. But I'm gonna start coming from that perspective again, because this is something that we really need to be, I think, is really important to pay attention to, because just think about it. Just think about those two things and look for yourself. For people who really want to go into it on your own, just think about the Wetiko virus and the truther community, or the New Age community and the New World community. Think of those two things and then start piecing together like your own video, or your own thing. See how that shit exists, because that's what I want to do, to talk about this the next video about this, because this Wetiko virus, that mentality, that parasite exists in like the ethers, and people just kind of like inhabit this shit, or they just like pick it out of the air thinking that it's something beneficial for them, but it's not. It only smells that way. It only looks that way. But once it gets inside your system, it starts eating away. It becomes a parasite to you. You're the host. So like Joe Rogan is like that etheric Wetiko like CS gas that like gets lodged in your body and starts eating away at you. He's like a manifestation, an embodiment of that sick and disgusting parasitic bullshit. That pride, like that same pride in the American dream, or the pride in like Texas fucking sort of mentality, and like the pride in the forefathers and all this other shit. This is what we're really talking about now. When you really you got to put, everybody want to label themselves, but they don't want to label the shit they're talking about. Like, you need to call this a fucking regime. You need to call them motherfuckers terrorists. The KKK, those some fucking terrorists. You're so easy call everybody else a terrorist because it's on television and because it's got a fucking commercial and some political agenda behind it. But how easily, how conveniently you forget about the in-house terrorists that have been terrorizing the original people of this land for as long as this history has ever existed. This fake-ass colonial history. This whole illusory authority system that the world is being built on right now. Or has been built on right now. The whole Western modern world is built on the blood and the bones, the lies. And these individuals are...
You just go wherever you want. That'd be the ideal world. If the whole world was America, in the sense of, you can go to New Mexico.
World order.
You don't have to get paperwork signed. You don't have to... No one has to tell you whether or not you're allowed to go visit or not go visit.
Did you say just New Mexico?
There. You can go to New Mexico. You don't have to get...
Wait, what?
America works. Where you can just go wherever you want. That'd be the ideal world. If the whole world was America, in the sense of, you can go to New Mexico. You don't have to get paperwork signed. You don't have to... No one has to tell you whether or not you're allowed to go visit or not go visit. Yeah. You can just drive there. That's...
You can't already just drive to New Mexico. He said New Mexico. I'm not making that shit up. You can just drive to New Mexico. What the fuck is he talking about? What the hell?
That's a nice thing about America. It's almost like Europe, but
that's like what's it called? I saw a video where Trump was saying something like that he's never been grocery shopping, so he thinks you need an ID to get some. I think it was on a Daily Show. You need ID or something to get. He thinks you need ID to get groceries, or it don't fucking matter. It's the same shit right there.
You don't need a passport. Not in it's like Europe. I know you guys have been around longer and all that good stuff. That's not what I mean. I mean in terms of, there's a bunch of different feels.
Yeah.
It's all speaking one language, but like, there's a big difference between visiting Montana and visiting Miami. You know, if you go to Billings, Montana, and hang out with the local folk at a coffee shop, and then you go to some fucking crazy after hours party in Miami on Miami Beach at 4 a.m. and Pete.
When he goes off on these stupid ass fucking jockhead ass fucking tangents like this, he's just building up the like what he wants you to believe in. He's building his case up. He wants you to be on the cool guys crew who goes over there and he's just, you know, this ripped American dream apple pies or fucking baseball on 4th of July, you know, all this bullshit. You know, that's what he represents. Telling these stupid ass stories. So these adolescent minded ass man children and woman children just jump on board the regular Joe Rogan train and start acting like they're smart because they can regurgitate what simple ass bullshit this fucking paid actor puts out there on his podcast. He's a fucking like #1 podcast out there. You basically talking about Fox News or CNN. How the fuck? That's like the #1 YouTuber out there. Joe Rogan is like who is it, like PewDiePie or whoever the fuck. These empty ass people. They're entertainers. They're there to dumb you down. If he's the #1 podcaster, you might as well be thinking like the #1 YouTuber is like the most talented YouTuber out there. What the fuck? Or the smartest, you know what I'm saying? The Instagram and all that other shit.
He shows up and fucking, you know,
they play that
there's
game.
all these celebrities and people are doing coke on the floor and like, what the fuck is this? This is a different world.
Yeah.
This is a different world. And there's a bunch of these different worlds. New York City's a different world. You know, LA is a different world. You're allowed to go there. Wouldn't it be great if the whole world was like that? You could just kind of go wherever you wanted to go, and it would all sort itself out. The idea is you can't, because it would fuck up our quality of life. It would make us less safe.
What
and I
the
get the argument.
fuck? If anybody had any doubt in their mind about fucking Joe Rogan, then fuck, it's just a lost cause at this point. What? When you hear somebody talking about that whole like our safety and all that other shit, he might as well be wearing a Bill and Hillary Clinton Halloween mask or some shit. This dude ain't. I mean, we've already known this, but I had a feeling that this video was gonna be kind of revealing like this because, yeah. Oh no, you went to Timothy Leary thing now. You probably went in. I'm gonna click on that now. Hopefully the video's still running. I'm gonna click on that because this shit is. He might start trying to defend himself about that. Let me see what he says.
Certainly, you don't want to bring in criminals and murderers. You don't want drug dealers making their way into this country and starting gang violence and all that stuff. Yes, you're absolutely right. And to deny that, I think is pretty fucking foolish.
He's a scum.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like
fucking earth.
There's a lot to it.
It's a fluid. The border is always going to be fluid, and it needs to be fluid. You know, we need
the
immigrant spirit of coming in,
pieces,
and a lot of them do start small businesses when, you know, and again, when they're brought in legally. And so how do you create a flow of people that is good for us? Because they say,
who the fuck is that guy? Who?
Most of the immigrants that come here are the smartest, sharpest people, most driven.
These are all
they're from.
These same.
So we're actually drawing a really good. You know, they talk so much about the criminal
parents. Like my grandparents. Like when did your grandparents come over here? Was it your grandparents or your great-grandparents?
1910.
Interesting.
Need the immigrant spirit of coming in, and a lot of them do start small businesses when, you know, and again, when they're brought in legally, as people most driven in wherever they're from. So we're actually drawing a really good, you know, they talk so much about the criminals, but the truth is most of them that are coming over here are the ones that probably have the most to offer to this country.
No truth.
Well, exactly
there ain't
like
no truth to
our
this.
parents' generation. Like our grandparents, like my grandparents. Like when did your grandparents come over here? Was it your grandparents or your great-grandparents?
1910, my grandparents.
Yeah, mine as well.
My grandfather was one of 13, and 12 of them came over here.
Oh my God.
And they lived in a 2-room fucking mud hut. Somehow they kept finding the money to send one kid up.
Their grandparents came over here in 1910. My grandpa was born in 1912 here. Their grandparents came over here in the early 1900s. How the fuck is their word? How the fuck is their discussions and their kind of like point of view more important or more like holds more weight or holds more water than somebody like me or my family or anybody else? It doesn't. It's a fucking illusion. It's make-believe. It's the fucking Mother Goose, the Easter Bunny, like all that shit. It's the same thing. So these fucking goofy hat and glasses and weird shirt, like fucking square ass motherfuckers, like adolescent ass man children, get on podcasts. This is the only thing. Like, you have fake leaders. That's the thing. That's why they kill the real leaders, and they make a world, an illusory world, where they can make fake leaders. So Joe Rogan is your fake leader. Alex Jones is your fake leader. These truther community people, conscious community, new agers, these are your fake leaders. Oprah, Eckhart Tolle, like all these like Disney sponsored as activists and gurus and all these other people out there. Like I said, linearly, like you listen, you read Eckhart Tolle's book, you're gonna learn a lot of shit from him. Like, you're gonna learn a lot of really good linear, complex linear programs, linear concepts, and some non-linear things too. Point being is that shit don't matter when you're talking about the macro agenda. When you start looking at the system overall, you're talking about non-linear worlds. And individuals like Joe Rogan and whoever he has on his podcast are designed to get you from looking at the non-linear worlds, and instead are there to emphasize the importance, the so-called importance of the linear worlds. So the American dream, the colonial world. When did your grandparents come over here? Like, they just came over here. Like, they just fucking just they just hopped on a fucking boat and just sailed over here and just showed up like they were taking a fucking Hawaiian vacation or something like that. No. They came over here, and as soon as they stepped off of the boat or off of the plane, they stepped into a big pool of fucking blood that is still a big pool of blood today. And these goofy ass, everything is okay, get over it motherfuckers who are just like with this monkey-minded mentality are designed out there to normalize this mentality, desensitize you from what's really going on, and distract you from the blood that's all over the ground. You ain't supposed to look at any of that. You ain't supposed to talk about any of that. You're supposed to talk about a border wall and all this other bullshit.
Over the time, like usually when they were about 15. Crazy
shit.
Yeah.
And look how they have to build it up.
Shit.
You would think he's telling like fairy tales or stories to little kids. They have to build it up. So, oh, holy shit. Oh my God. And people are like, ooh, what is Joe Rogan holy shitting about? This seems interesting. And then these fucking copycat ass people just take the information that he says and copycat. Just like all these other channels copycat other channels too. They just take information, fucking copycat all.
Is what I'm talking about. Like, those kind of people.
He's out there to...
Shouldn't they be allowed to come here? That's how this thing got started. The real problem is that there's spots that suck. That's the real problem. It's like we were talking about like white privilege. The white privilege is not the problem. The problem is racism. If racism doesn't exist, then everyone's exactly the same.
How the fuck could you separate white privilege from racism? Racism is not the problem. White privilege is not the problem. Racism is the problem. How the fuck you see how these individuals skirt around the main shit? they don't want to get. They smart about everything else in the whole fucking world except when dealing with their shit. They are the smartest, most intellectual motherfuckers about everything in the whole damn world. But as soon as you start talking about colonialism and the genocide of the indigenous people and the stealing of the land, as soon as you start talking about that information is off limits. Anything that exposes the regime for what it is taboo. We must have a move on mentality and come together in a new world order. If every other country in the world had a mentality that was like America, you could just have a borderless world. You could become a one world people. Humanity. No more wars. That's how they're gonna sell this shit. And these old meathead assholes out there just to be the forward team to just kind of barrel through and, you know, steal the information from the YouTubers who already put the shit out and then dumb it down, repackage it in their own way and sell it and probably put it in a fucking book. Sell it to the people like they fucking created or thought of this shit. Just putting it out there like. And then because they put it out there, then you know it's ridiculous. Let's see what they say.
And then we're okay. And then we don't need to worry about white privilege. The real problem is you're not getting racist things thrown at you the way black people are. Yeah, for sure. But that's not the problem. The problem is racist things being thrown at black people. It's not the.
It's not. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. Really? It's not?
I don't get it.
Right.
It's that you get it.
Right.
And it's like to highlight the fact
you don't
that
get it.
It's not happening to me. I get what you're saying, but the real problem, I think it's a distraction. The real problem is the racism itself.
See, so when he speaks so like confident about situations like this, hit two fucking white privileged men talking about white privilege, how racism and white privilege doesn't exist in certain ways, by themselves, talking to 500,000 people in one fucking day, more than that, probably 1 million fucking people. This is what's wrong with the whole fucking world right now. Shit like this. Privileged pieces of shit like this, fucking arrogant, just garbage at both of them. So far up their own asses, they don't even realize that they don't even realize what they're doing. They can't even see it. They can't see how fucked up it is that they're saying what they're saying right now. And they have no fucking accountability. Why? Because this is what the podcasters are designed to do, and celebrityism is designed to do. People like this can just say shit all fucking lackadaisy, and they will never be held accountable for it. And then before you know, you got a shockwave of people believing what Joe Rogan puts out there. So when I or anybody else out in the main public or even on YouTube have anything to say about racism or white privilege, people default to the ignorant and arrogant perspective that Joe Rogan has, and then approach the individuals who are bringing this shit up as if what they're saying doesn't even matter. So by him speaking on these issues without being held accountable, or at least being in the presence of somebody else who lives this shit, that's not gonna fucking just suck his dick all damn day, like he hires those people or people that he gets to just kiss his ass on his podcast all day. These individuals are not held accountable. The same way the politicians are not held accountable, and the professors in the university systems, their authority, the whole system is not held accountable by the people, because the people are still living in this whole slave master mentality, thinking that these assholes are the evolutionary peak of what we should be paying attention to and what we should be talking about. But they only exist out there to distract you from taking your own fucking your own power back and inhabiting your power yourself, so you can address their illusory power. They won't allow you to do that, or at least they won't allow the system to set up the situation for you to do that, for you to be able to do that. They'll just put these individuals out there, so nothing will actually ever change. So this is why and the same thing happens. What Joe Rogan just did right now for the racism, white privilege discussion is the same thing that truthers and so-called flat earthers are doing to the human story discussion. By them only talking about, and even when they do, what makes it even worse is when these individuals, Jaronism, Patricia, Mark, they've all commented on my channel and shit, like said something in one point or another about shit on my fucking channel. So when they do that, what they're doing is that they are putting a black sheet over everything, because all they have to do is everything that I've done and said, as if it has no validity. So this is the same thing that Jaronism did when he commented his bullshit on my channel about it. Just dumbs it down. So then they have like fucking however many hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people that are just followers. It's a very sensitive situation that we have here. You're dealing with child minds. They're just gonna follow people. So if you put out the atmosphere of the talking points of the discussions that individuals who are just putting this shit out there for us to really talk about. If you're putting something out there as if it doesn't fucking matter, then you are actually working for the same kind of mentality that Joe Rogan is. He's just distracting you openly. Other people are distracting you intellectually. They're telling you, no, that shit doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. All you need to do is just repeat yourself over and over and over again. Just repeat the earth is flat, the earth is flat, the earth is flat over and over and over again. And then, eventually the human world will wake up and will become one. And how fucking simple. You think you're in a fucking cartoon right now? How simple do you think this shit is? When people just like Joe Rogan, they play people, they put it out there like that. But like I said, the way he puts out that atmosphere, that feeling of, white privilege and racism. Yeah, we don't really need to talk about it. It's not white privilege. That's not the problem. It's racism that's the problem. What the fuck? Two fucking white privileged men on a paid to be at the top of the list podcast talking about deep ass issues like this by themselves. 3 fucking white dudes. The other dude behind the scenes pulling shit off the internet that backs up their dumb ass fucking limited ass bullshit stories. This is the problem with the world today. What the fuck? How the hell is Joe Rogan's podcast right now and how it affects people right now any different than the so-called truther community? And Alex Jones and them telling you what to focus on. Focus on the Mandela effect. Focus on flat. Focus on simulation theory. Focus on this. And like I said, I don't want to get into the expectation things and all that other stuff because I've already explained myself on that. My main thing is just to put this atmosphere, this presence out there so people know that it exists and that for other people to know that they ain't the only ones that are thinking that way with this old, fucking training wheel ass bullshit that people are putting out there. Just, Owen Benjamin talked about the flat earth. Oh, he looks like he's having a hard time. Who gives a fuck about that dude? Like, how fucking, get ahead of the fucking game. Like, start pushing the fucking limits. Start getting out there and, really, man, it's just
the real problem is when you see actual Nazis in
see how they got it, see how they had to expand it just so you don't even address the real issue. See, he talked about Nazis, but so you won't talk about the psychology, the origins of racism, the origins of white supremacy, the origins of that. They want you to talk about Nazis the same way every year there's a new World War II movie. There's a new Holocaust, Jewish so-called Holocaust movie. There's all these things that they want, movies about things that they want you to focus on. Keep replaying the American dream. Keep replaying the world wars that the new world modern mentality won and created, so you can be proud that we went to the moon and that you can go through the drive-through at a fucking McDonald's and wipe your ass with a mechanical toilet or some shit like that. So let's see what else.
2018, 2019, actual ones, real ones. Not just dressing up because they think
Look at his eyes.
I'm a rebel. I'm a fucking rebel, bro. I got a piece of tape under my nose. There's some fucking people that aren't really Nazis, but they're dumb.
Yeah.
Right? But then you see a real Nazi in 2019. You're like, okay, that's real racism.
Yeah. Now, when they go in...
What the fuck? Like I said, and this is why I get so fucking angry all the time. See, they kill the fucking discussion. How fucking disrespectful is that? To say. He's basically downplaying everything that we say. The KKK, that's real racism. But when we talk about what our experience is every moment of the day, when I walk out of the house, I'm already hit with a wave of dealing with shit. I'm having to deal with that shit. See, that shit is downplayed by individuals like Joe Rogan, who represent an entire frequency of like a whole consciousness of people. So when he says shit like that, he's paid to say shit like that, to make our stories non-existent, to make our talking points non-existent, to make our approach and our revolution and our movement non-existent. They kill it before you even get to speak about anything. So he says, that's real racism. The KKK in 2019, that's real racism. What's not real racism? Oh, well, what those other black people were talking about. Get the fuck out of here.
I was in Portland, and they said there's regular clashes. Like once a month, there's a demonstration, and it's either the alt-right having a demonstration, and then the, what do they call them, the something fa? Antifa show up, and they have regular fights, and it's fucking Nazis.
God damn.
Oregon's a fucked up state because it was originally, there were no black people allowed in Oregon.
Yeah.
That's the, because now Portland is this very progressive.
See, there are no black people allowed in Oregon. And they'll just glaze over that. Like I said, that is the origins of like races. That's like origins. You have to talk about the psychology of that. How does that exist today? How, they won't never talk about this. They won't never talk about how psychologically that exists inside the people today in Oregon, in the whole world. Like literally, like you couldn't, you were not welcome. That's like the slave masters feeding slave babies to alligators. The individuals who speak and defend the system don't even fit their own qualifications for the definitions of what a human is. They don't even fit the energetically the qualifications for humanity. They're still trying to be human, or still trying to understand what having a soul is, or the feeling of what a soul is. See, people like Joe Rogan are distracting the masses from interpreting things or the whole perspectives of this reality from the perspective of the soul. They want you to focus your perspectives from, at best, intellect, like science and shit. It's not even real science. It's fake science. They won't allow you to get into alchemy and the balance between true science and the spirit. So this is the war. That's the real war that's going on. And this is what these individuals, these goofy motherfuckers represent.
Super progressive, but there's no black people there. So it feels a little hollow when you're there.
Running shit.
I just did New Year's Eve shows there, and it was fucking all white. It was all white. It was weird.
That is weird.
If I was black, I would go to Portland in a second. You'd have so many friends instantly. Everybody wants to high five you, have you over for dinner.
It's funny. It's laughable. See, they don't want to talk about like how that is some of the most fucked up shit, because they can't even see how that's. They're literally talking about how the side effect to not being allowed in Oregon is that you'll have great friends now because there's no black people there. They don't want to talk about how fucked up that is. They want to laugh it off and play the so-called positive side. The positive side to being banned from an entire state is that now, not even that long later, however many years later, like less than 100 years later, now if you go to Portland, you're going to have a whole bunch of friends because there's no black people there. You see how fucking sick these people are? This is insane.
I'm reading this book now about, speaking of changing your brain, it's called How to Change Your Mind. It's a guy's Michael Pollan.
Yeah. He's been on the podcast talking about it.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Did he talk about his new book? About
books.
It's basically
books.
about...
These individuals, colonists, settlers, fucking genocidal maniacs, psychopathic fucking pieces of shit, whatever you want to call them. Their whole world, their God it's based upon books. Papers and fucking letters, English words and fucking pieces of paper in a big ass book. Their books, when they bring people on podcasts, they got to bring people on podcasts who wrote a whole bunch of fucking books or got a whole bunch of fucking, degrees or, all kinds of bullshit from their own system that they made. Fake books, fake people, fake intellect that, like I say fake to emphasize the not soul, the soullessness of it. That's why I'm saying that. To the soullessness. These individuals are fucking soulless.
Psychedelics and LSD and mushrooms in particular, and traces the whole fucking history of it.
Yeah.
I had no idea how much research was done back in the 50s and 60s.
I just
mean, they
wanted
had
to
conclusive
see
studies that were showing
if he starts defending himself.
Alcoholism, people were 70%.
Nixon funded a bunch.
The other thing he mentioned, so they
People who've never taken psychedelics, horrified that people are out there experimenting with their consciousness, because I think a lot of these psychiatrists.
So for people don't know why I'm looking into this video right now is because Alex Jones just labeled Joe Rogan as the modern day Timothy Leary, and you know the whole CIA connection, that whole thing now. So I wanted to see if Joe Rogan addressed any of this, because now he's gonna have to. It looks like he's just now having to separate himself, but he's not from Timothy Leary, but you know, still emphasizing, you know, what he's really about, because like I said in previous videos, they're going to sell that whole simulation theory mentality with transhumanism and psychedelics like the spirit molecule and the law of attraction with the secret and the super secret, or the super spiritual super soul Sunday fucking Oprah TV show thing or network thing. Like, this is that whole world. So psychedelics are the drugs that they're gonna sell to you to get, like, make it real for you. Simulation theory is like the video games are making you. Sims World is making you accept that whole thing. Quantum physics, Cosmos, Brian Cox, Netflix, all those TV shows, Ancient Aliens, and then the alien thing is to kill all the historic, like all your ancestors. So they're killing the past, the present, and the future, all by selling you this fake ass bullshit.
Are probably really straight-laced guys, and so in their mind, especially in the shadows of reefer madness and all the propaganda they'd heard in the 30s and 40s, and when you look at those people and they're out there in the fucking
is saying that none of these studies are valid because they're who is where people taking.
It's interesting because he also got a lot of people to get excited about it.
Yeah,
he kind of did, and who knows what an impact that had on him deciding to
happening in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
this whole psychedelic movement was like right in that area.
Yeah,
there was a guy named
Ramdas?
No, Hubbard. Well, Ramdas has mentioned all CEOs of companies and taking.
Yeah. Matthew Hubbard, as a visionary or transcendental drug.
But this guy had a
drop an acid.
It's worth like he believed in its
pass for your car's a risk. I'm looking at the reward. Pharmaceutical industry that doesn't want it to be legal because it'll take. People look at that kind of stuff. Like, are you happy or not happy with the way things go, the way things are run?
In what sense?
Just in any sense, in all of it.
I trust that we do have the best system out there, and we challenge it every day, and I still think that we live in a place where the tenets of our...
Does he not sound like a infomercial for a red, white, and blue painted hot dog, in a wallpaper called the American Dream or some shit like that? Like, this is they talk all this deep ass shit, and then still gotta defend McDonald's toys.
Society are in place.
For sure.
They swing one way or the other,
we
but
are the
I
best
still believe
society
in democracy,
in the world.
and I think the internet as an overall thing has been positive for people getting their voices out and for
information period being distributed.
Every single talking point that these individuals say and put out there for you to be paying attention to is to distract you from you empowering yourself and connecting to the real truth, the deeper truth. Every single, when they talk about Timothy Leary and psychedelics and simulation theory, all that other shit, is to suck you into their bullshit. As long as you're sucked into their bullshit, they can feast off of you like the parasite.
But the idea that we're faced with, that in this day and age, there's grown adults telling other grown adults what they can and can't put in their body.
Yeah.
And they're not being honest about the benefits.
Right.
That's where it gets squirrely.
No, it's not grown adults telling grown adults. It's a regime. It's a psychological colonial regime, at least, that individuals like Joe Rogan are paid to ignore and not speak of. It's an empire. It's a regime. It's a terrorist psychological consciousness that people like Joe Rogan are paid to protect. and whether they know it or not. And other people like, it doesn't matter whether or not Joe Rogan is consciously doing it. If you ask me if I had to get, I don't know the fucking dude. I'd say obviously, yeah, he knows what he's doing. But like I said, it doesn't fucking matter because you got people on YouTube who are doing it and they don't know. And they got hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people following them, millions of views and all that other shit. And they don't know that they're doing the same thing that Joe Rogan is doing for people. So they're unconsciously doing it. So if you have people consciously and unconsciously doing the same destructive shit, why does it fucking matter anymore? Let's talk about what they're distracting you from. Do something about it.
Where the whole thing falls apart. Like, you're just a guy. Like, if you and I are the only two people on the planet, and you're like, hey man, I'm not gonna let you take that acid. Like, why people? Then a person that what I'm gonna.
So like I said, it's not they dance around the main things you need to be addressing and talking about. It's like they say, you know, fucking empty ass shit like you have men telling other men not to put something in their bodies. No, you don't have that. See, that shit is new. That came over with these fucking settlers and these assholes, these so-called settlers, which were colonists and fucking terrorists, who are now talking about they need to build a fucking wall. It's not some dudes telling other dudes that they shouldn't be putting LSD in their body. No, it's a specific psychological operation. It's a very specific regime of consciousness that is inflicting these things on the masses of people, and pieces of shit like him are protecting it.
Is gonna fuck with you. If you can't prove that, then stop.
Yeah.
Because that's the main thing that keeps it safe, is that they talk around it. That's what, because you can get the feeling of what they're talking about. They could just put it in the title, and you get the feeling of talking about it. Like, you get the feeling like, oh, it's out in the consciousness. It's out there now. No, you get the feeling of it, but they're not really doing anything. They're not really addressing it. They're only appearing to address it. So nothing actually gets done with it.
Look, if someone does something, takes something and does something, they take PCP and they run face first through a fucking 7-Eleven window, that's on them. That's on their actions. It doesn't mean about that.
Yeah. And this is the same society that allows the pharmaceuticals to peddle opiates to people for the last 30 years, saying that it was the greatest thing you could do.
Exactly. I think it's good that they make money because they make medicine that helps a lot of people. They're not all bad. I think in general, pharmaceuticals have helped people in tremendous ways. But you can't deny that if there's...
What kind of fucking slimy piece of shit that do you have to be to find any kind of... Okay, obviously, there are things that are... that are good in the pharmaceutical, realm of things. But like I said, when you're in a balanced world, in a balanced sort of like yourself, like your body, which is the main thing, that's the real discussion. It's not whether or not pharmaceuticals are good or bad. That's not the fucking problem. That's not the discussion. See, this is the adolescent discussion that these individuals de-evolve. They de-evolve the pharma. See, Joe Rogan is a de-evolution specialist. He takes the conversation like pharmaceuticals and shrinks and de-evolves it to, they're pretty fucked up, but they're not so bad. They do some good things. That's what he's hired to do, to humanize that shit.
Some way, shape, or form that people are influencing other people having access to beneficial things because it would impact their profit line. That's evil.
Yeah.
That's evil. You have a lot of fucking money. If you're really going out of your way to hire lobbyists to make sure that mushrooms don't get on the table, come on, man.
Yeah.
You're a fucking real problem. That's a real problem.
Right.
If you look at yin and yang, this is the opposing forces that we're battling to try to get total, complete freedom of your consciousness. These are the opposing forces. They're ignorance. Like these psychiatrists, I guarantee you these psychiatrists were worried about correlations between psychotic episodes and psychedelic drug use, and they're worried about people falling apart, and they're right. They're right. These are the ones that wanted to get it illegal. They're right. It's like working on backflips when there's a fucking thin pad under you. Yeah, you can fall on your head. Yeah. You're right. If you say, don't do gymnastics, people fall on their head. 1 out of 10 falls on their head. You're not doing gymnastics. You're not falling on your fucking head. Right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So people worried about it that don't really have experience in it. I guarantee you, most of those psychiatrists just didn't have experience in it, or were super cautious folks.
That's not the discussion either. It's not about Big Brother being worried about us. See how, like I said, he de-evolves the discussion. He also humanizes the regime, the establishment, as if they are concerned with us. Like he's saying their talking points for them. He's like, oh yeah, they've only criminalized it. It's like saying that they've criminalized weed because they care about us. This is the same discussion. It's not they didn't criminalize weed because they care about us. They criminalized weed because they wanted to criminalize certain groups of people, and put, have a reason to put certain people in jail. That's why something like that, and that's just one level of consciousness. Beyond that, it was also to affect the consciousness of the people, and also like the soaking, the parasiting of this land, the cutting down of the trees instead of the hemp. So all these talking points are missed because of his eyeballs when he gets real big. Oh, he gets real big about that shit, like he's talking to little kids and shit. So yeah. Let's see what else he says.
So if they did have experience with it, maybe they try a little mushroom dose and they'd be like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh, that's what it is. So yeah, he's out there to what was that word? Like I said, yeah, make the stories more real. They're unbelievable anyway. First of all, they have no platform. Second of all, everything that's being said by that system doesn't matter because they don't have a voice. There's not a voice. How the fuck could you... Their soapbox that they're standing on is still dripping with blood. That's what I'm saying. And these individuals are not seeing this shit. And they got to distract you with the bullshit talking points. So like I said before, the pharmaceutical... I'm going to repeat myself again. The pharmaceuticals is not about that. Like, just like racism is not about like white privilege only. It's the psychology of racism. It's the psychology of the pharmaceuticals. It's the power of racism. It's the power of pharmaceuticals. Simple-minded motherfuckers like Joe Rogan ain't gonna go there.
So controlling
on purpose.
A set and setting they keep talking about. And realizing that the occurrence of a psychotic episode is so much lower when it's when it's being dispensed the right way.
And he talks about how fear is a bad thing, and that's how they sell their programs all the time. Yeah, he's in here selling fear. Look at this. It's scary the way they're talking about this shit. Get a real fucking shaman and start talking about some shit. Don't just sit up here on your spirit molecule DMT fucking Netflix episode. I know everything about the non-physical world because I've taken DMT fucking soapbox. Get a real fucking ayahuasca shaman out there and get a translator. Tell you what the fuck is going on. No, but they if they do that, it'll cut all their fucking bullshit out. See how many years and months of knowledge or of mind control that they would lose if he put on like a real shaman. How much research would be done if a real shaman came on here and really started to explain psychedelics from their perspective? Like, how much change will actually be made? No, that's a proof of why Joe Rogan is out there to do what he does. It's the same way if you had like two of my friends, like if me and like two of my homies came on to his podcast and were just like, all right, let's talk about racism. Let's hear your little cheap ass fucking childish talking points, and then we're gonna start talking about it. You see how we would get into it. You can already hear me gearing up to get ready to start talking about that. But like rewind back in your head to what he said. Racism is about this. It's not about that. They got all the answers. So for him to even say that without anybody else in the presence who's lived that experience is another proof of the reasons why these individuals exist out there. They sell the talking points that they say that they're not selling and that they're not a part of.
So much lower.
You ever been led through it by somebody?
No,
like when you did ayahuasca, was there like
I didn't do ayahuasca. I just did DMT. Aubrey, my friend Aubrey, acted as he sort of like set the setting
See, that's a really good example. A good example of like how fucked up this is. The synthesized consciousness. He's never like just to generalize, like very generally speaking, but it's a good kind of correlation. Um, they want to. This is like the synthesized consciousness. You're not gonna get everything from DMT. You might get a little picture of it, and you might have a hell of an experience. It might change your entire life. But you can't compare DMT experience to an ayahuasca experience. They're incomparable. In fact, they're not even supposed to be compared. They're two different things. But when you break it down, even on a chemical level, DMT is the active ingredient in like the DMT experience is basically what these colonial-minded individuals who are just kind of like on this microwave consciousness are protecting, and they're only allowing themselves to what is that word? Perceive this reality from a limited frame of consciousness. It's from the synthesized level of consciousness. The same way, like the same difference between DMT and ayahuasca. You can talk about this shit, but they ain't never really experienced it. Like they like DMT is an experience, but it's not an ayahuasca experience. And I'm just putting these two up there in comparison, just to give like the metaphorical, or the understanding of like synthesizing intelligence or synthesizing our experience, because you have a limited frame of consciousness.
In a way where it was,
and then calling that God or
I would say like
kings.
spiritual, like not ridiculous, not over the top, but just announcing your intentions. That we're going into this, we're going to let go, we're going to, give thanks to all the spirits around us and all the energy around us.
What the fuck
just
is that?
go into
See
this
how
with good
cheap
intention.
that is?
Be grateful. Go into.
You see how cheap now? Like I said, imagine a real ayahuasca shaman on there talking about it. Now listen to his old fucking skipping over his own shoelaces type of, all right, we're going to go into this with intention. We're going to gather all our spirit dudes and get all our spiritual dudes together and come in and fucking help us out with our intentions. Probably going to try to intend to get a Lamborghini or some more viewers on our podcast. And we're going to, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's some old bullshit. And they're there to commercialize everything. This is why Joe Rogan is like he's the trash of the trash. He can turn something as spiritual as an ayahuasca trip or a spiritual connection to your ancestors through a DMT experience. He can turn that into a fucking a Nacho Bel Grande super fucking deluxe extra value Taco Bell meal. And then you'll eat it because you're starving, and then you fucking shit yourself for like 3 weeks straight because you ate this fucking dude's like Nacho Supreme. It's fucking ridiculous.
With gratitude, and then the way it hits you like a infinite cyclone of geometric patterns in impossible colors, just blasting into your brain instantaneously.
That's how far it goes. Infinite cyclone of colors and shapes, and that's as far as it goes. You hear what he said, and then he's just gonna go off of the colors and the shapes and the all that other stuff. The same way that flat earthers only talk about flat versus globe. The same way that all this other bullshit is only based upon like the conspiracy theories or the truther community is only based upon lies. So it's very shallow, very bullshit sort of.
Like going into it with the intention of letting go is probably one of the best pieces of advice you could give people.
Letting go.
Avoid a freak out.
What does that mean?
Go with it.
Let it go. Just let yourself go. And what it's trying to do is your ego is trying to wrestle with this grizzly bear, this enormous short-faced bear on steroids. Your ego is trying to wrestle with this impossible to resist force. And that's what leads to a lot of people freaking out.
So losing your ego is the ultimate goal.
Commercial spiritualism.
I don't think anybody ever really loses their ego. I think you keep it in check. You lose some of it. You keep some of it because it's part of your survival mechanism. The real problem is like having a healthy ego. Like
survival mechanism.
Like if your wife looks good,
that's what
she's
he
looking at herself in the mirror.
defaults
She's like, "Oh, look good. You look fucking great. I do look good." Like, she feels good. It feels everybody. That's ego, right? You want to know you look good, but it's not a bad ego. It's fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The real problem
See how
is
simple
when it gets
this
out of
shit
control
is?
and toxic. Then it looks like other people see it and like ew. You see gross.
These are things trying to be human. Like things I don't know what the fuck is going on here. But this is, it seems like a thing trying to be human and not even know what a human is. They don't even have a starting point. They don't have a definition of what a human is. So it's a thing trying to be something it doesn't know what is. and they're just saying what sounds good.
You see that and you go, oh, that's the bad part of the ego. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But the key is to know which is which. And that's hard. It's hard to know which is which. Which one is the overwhelming force inside your mind? Which one is the one that's controlling your consciousness and your behavior? And which is it the good one or the bad one? Is it the fun, healthy one? Or is it the one that is, completely obsessed with yourself and own yourself?
This is like,
you don't know until you have these experiences. And then
the Earth experience,
the nature of them gets exposed.
Play
It takes them down
school.
to the roots. And you start thinking about, well, where did all this come from? Like, what's the source of all this? Like, oh, there's a validation issue. There's a this issue. There's a trust issue. There's a, whatever the fuck it is. It's swirling out of that in this unnatural form to create the negative behavior that you are manifesting in your life. Like it comes from something. And one of the things about psychedelic experiences is it shuts the ego off for a second and lets you stand outside of it and go, look what the thing's doing to you. Look at this thing. This thing's gross. Not only that, it doesn't work.
This is ridiculous. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm done. This video's gone on long enough. I'm probably just gonna add this to the series of Joe Rogan is trash videos because it's trash. Fuck it, he's trash. I'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.